All right, we'll ask our director from Bowie County, Mr. Anthony Pinkham, Secretary Treasurer, to come and give a report of the co-op. He's taller than I am, so we'll go on just.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. First item of business on the agenda today is the report of members present. In accordance to the Texas Electric Cooperative Act, we need 5% of members present in person or represented by a proxy to have a quorum. We do not have a quorum today and will not be able to transact any business, but we will continue with the program. You have all received by mail a notice of the meeting stating that the annual membership meeting will be held Friday, October the 10th, 2025, beginning at 1 p.m. at the Bowie-Cass Pavilion in Douglasville, Texas. As Secretary and Treasurer of the Board, I have the proof of mailing of this notice. Reading of the minutes. The next item on the agenda is the reading of the minutes of last year's meeting. Normally we dispense with the reading of the minutes. Is there someone who would like to make a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes? All right, do I have a second? All right, all in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. All right, the motion passes. And then the last item today is that each member of the cooperative should receive the copy of the financials as you came in. If you did not receive one, there are some available. If you have any questions, members will be available at the end of the meeting. Before I wrap up, one quick thing. Ms. Sue Berry, would you mind standing for a second? They have asked me to take her spot, and I gratefully did, to serve as Secretary Treasurer. Ms. Sue has been on the board since '93 and served as Secretary Treasurer since 2001. Y'all please give her a round of applause.
Thank you, Anthony. We'll move on to the President's report. Mr. Steve DeLaughter.
Can you hear me? Wow, what a crowd. I don't recall in the last few years seeing this many people, but beautiful weather, great music, good food. How does it get any better than this? Anyway, it's so good to see all of you out again today. Trust. It's such a simple yet profound word. It's also something that's quite difficult for so many of us to have in times that we live in. Unfortunately, we can't trust most politicians, even the ones we tend to agree with. And we sure can't trust the news media to tell us the unfiltered truth. In fact, it's sometimes difficult to trust so many people in any position of authority. You've probably forgotten, I hope you haven't, but I leaned into this microphone and told you many years ago that I will always tell you the truth. And I will always make decisions that I believe are in the best interest of the members. And I have kept my word. This January, I will have been doing this for 30 years. I don't think I had a gray hair on my head when I started. Isn't that right, Miss Sue? I mention her because she's the only one that's been here longer than I have. bless her heart. But I'll tell you this, folks, as directors, we don't do it because it's easy, because it's not. We do it because it's meaningful and it affects a lot of people. With that said, I'm grateful, and even more so, I'm humbled by your trust in me to serve on your behalf as a director here at the cooperative. And I'm certain Hal and Shep, who you also just re-elected, feel the same, as do the other directors seated to my left. Now, I just mentioned that what we do is not always easy. Every great once in a while, your board is faced with having to make some really tough decisions that sometimes aren't all that popular. I'm referring to the most recent rate increase and the pass-through fee to process credit and debit cards. Now, the reasons for the rate increase should be obvious, as none of us have been immune to the extended inflationary period we've all experienced over the last few years. We actually put this off longer than we should have, simply because this board has a great aversion to rate increases. In fact, we hate them as bad as you do. But after 2 consecutive years of negative operating margins, we had a duty to move forward with it. And concerning the credit and debit card transaction fees, we all felt it simply is not fair to the members who pay their bill through other means such as a bank draft or an e-check, which costs the co-op or the member nothing. For those members to have to continue to share in the financial costs to process card transactions of those who do. We studied both for a year or more before making the changes, which included long board meetings, and they will attest to that. Workshops, and very involved and detailed cost of service study. My point being, those weren't arbitrary decisions, and they weren't easy, but were necessary. Throughout this process, we were always committed to making sure any changes were, first and foremost, necessary, and secondly, fair to all. Bottom line is, you elect us and expect us to oversee the cooperative on your behalf, to make certain it is operated in an efficient and a financially sound manner. What I just mentioned are provided for in 2 of the cooperative principles that all cooperatives are duty bound by. Keep in mind, a cooperative only has 2 sources of income. It either comes from the members or we borrow it. And if we borrow it, we have to pay it back with interest. Folks, that's enough on that. Let's move on to something that I'd much rather talk about, and that's industry issues. For the first time in a while, I'm cautiously optimistic about where we are and where we are headed with this country's energy policy as it relates to cooperatives and other energy providers. Now, that's not to say that we're out of the woods. In fact, we're never really out of the woods. As long as we have supposedly educated people argue that CO2 is a pollutant, given that each and every one of us exhales about 2 pounds of it every day. And as long as we have politicians continue to play silly and divisive political games like they are now, being more concerned about remaining in office and padding their own bank accounts rather than simply taking care of the people's business. Then, of course, as we've seen numerous times, things can make an abrupt about face every year, 4 years, with a change in the administration. But the good news is recent policy decisions by the current administration, which have finally returned some degree of sanity to our energy policy, things are looking better. Dismantling the Green New Deal was a great start, as it was always destined to destabilize the power grid and get deep into our pockets. With the rescission of it and other so-called green energy and climate programs, along with fast-tracking the permitting process for new generation, things are finally moving in our favor as it relates to keeping those lights on. As you've heard me say before, I want the lights to come on when I flip that switch. I just don't hope they do, I expect it. And when I open my bill, I want to look at it and think, you know, okay, it's fair. It's been hot or it's been cold, so I expect it to be higher than I want. Quick story, and this is not verbatim, but you'll get the idea. A while back, I was getting my gray haircut, and the lady who was cutting my hair was complaining about her SWEPCO bill. She went on and on and on, and I just, of course, sit there because I'm captive at that point. Anyway, she just couldn't understand how it could be so high because, in her words, she hadn't done anything different. Well, it had been hot for quite some time, and with several days that hovered around 100. So I finally asked her what she keeps her thermostat set on. She said, "Oh, I keep it turned way down. I like it cold." And then she added, "My air conditioner never shuts off and I'm still hot." I just shook my head and thought, I'm not going to touch that. Well, folks, I intended to keep it short, so that's really all I have for you today, but I'll leave you with this thought. No doubt we're living in some strange and unsettling times, but when I look out there and I see Old Glory waving in the breeze like it's doing right now, and when I hear my good friend Danny Maxey, and I'm not sure if he's still here with us, but anyway, I did want to point him out. When I hear him belt out that Star Spangled Banner as he did just a little earlier, I'm reminded that no matter how crazy this world seems to become, God Almighty is still in control.
Oh, yes.
And how blessed I am to live right where I do in the greatest country on earth. Thank y'all for your time this afternoon.
Right, so I'm gonna touch what you're laughing about. So let me All right, we'll get going on this. I'm not gonna promise that it's gonna be short. I've promised for 14 years I would try to make it short. And I tried again this year, but I didn't quite get there. So maybe I'll get nervous and talk fast and it won't take as long as I thought. But before we jump into what I want to tell you, I want to share something with you that you may find a little entertaining. A good friend of mine, Joe Walmart, came into church the other day and he's handing out bulletins and said, "Here, Mark, I want to give you something." And I thought it was a bulletin. He said, "No, look here." And what he handed me, he got from his uncle who worked for the co-op a long time ago. It is the 1953 version of the co-op hymn book. You ever seen that before? Crazy, right? Got a hymn book for the co-op. And as I got to looking through it, they've got songs in there to mimic a lot of different songs, but it's obvious to me that when this thing was written, it was on the heels of when we began back in 1937. A lot of people during that era understood what it was like to not have electricity and realize what electricity did for their lives. And that's incorporated in each and every one of these songs. I think now in 2025, we've kind of forgotten that. Like he said, we don't just hope that switch comes on, we expect it to be on. And I don't want my lights to blink, and John Brown sure better not knock my internet out, because I gotta watch that show. Anyway, I didn't get this in time to print up anything, but maybe next year we'll sing one of these tunes. But I've asked my wife if she would. Where's she at? No, I'm not going. She's way back there in the back, and she's shaking her head real hard. I get that pretty often. I've been married 37 years, so I understand what no means. Anyway, I'm gonna just read you a couple of these just to give you an idea of what was going on back then. This is one that's real short. Farmers, we were wishing for some help with chores each day. Help with cutting, sawing, and milking. Then came the good old REA. A lot of you folks here remember when we were called the REA. Some folks don't even know what the REA means, Rural Electric Association. Ladies, don't you love it? REA does work for you. Sewing, washing, cooking, ironing, roasting, freezing, heating, too. That's a little chauvinistic, but anyway, you get the point. Here's another one. I'm gonna try not to make this sound like a jingle, but I'll see if you can figure out the tune it was patterned around. Co-op, the farmers stand by, have a lot of friends and foes, and if you ever joined one, you would even know how it goes. Some of our fellow workers laugh aloud and call us names. They'd like to see our co-ops losing out in worldly games. But one happy, lucky day, friends and neighbors said, "Co-ops with your strength and might, won't you give us farmers' light?" Then how the people loved it as they shouted REA. Co-op, the farmers stand by. Now you're here and here to stay. All right. We'll see about singing some of that next year. Y'all ready? All right. Well, I've got about 40 pages of stuff rolling around in my head. Oh Lord, I heard it. I've condensed it the 2 pages. This is the outline for 5 type pages. I'm going to try to get through it as quickly as I can because I know we're excited because we have a record number of door prizes this year. So rather than being confined behind this thing, let's jump out here. Steve talked about a lot of things that transpired since last year, and they have. We've had elections, and we also had the 89th Texas legislative session. Oh boy, when we have the legislative session. Thank God it's only every 2 years. Thank God they don't stay down there all the time. But they do have it every 2 years, and unfortunately we have to get involved in that process. And because there's always going to be bills that come up with regards to what's going on in our industry, sometimes more than others. This legislative session, as you read in there, it was not very kind to us, and it caused us to get involved. I had to go to Austin on more than one occasion, and I'm going to tell you, there's nothing worse for a good old fighting Texas Aggie. Whoop! Come on, y'all. Where you at, Jerry Moody? Come on. There we go. To have to go to Austin on more than one occasion. And albeit I don't like to have anything to do with things burnt orange, that's not nearly as bad to me as having to deal with politics and politicians. And that's what we had to deal with this year. In particular, there were a couple of things: wildfire mitigation and pole inspections. There was a lot of emphasis around those because of things that happened in Texas with wildfires in West Texas and with some of the storms that happened down in the Center Point area. That got legislators stirred up, and they were bound to determine that they were going to put some bills through and pass some laws to make sure that there were better processes in place. We have pole inspections and wildfire mitigation programs already, but nonetheless, we got drug into it, and it's going to cause us to have to do more reporting to the Public Utility Commission, as well as being another administrative headache on our part. The other thing that took way too much time in Austin, way too much political capital, was the pole attachment legislation. You saw us on Facebook telling you about that. We put it on our website. Our national organization, NRECA, got involved trying to get people informed about what was going on with pole attachments. Look, these are your poles. They don't belong to anybody else. Every one of these poles got put in the ground to serve Bowie-Cass members. And yes, telecom companies and cable companies have the right to get on those poles. Once they do everything properly, they get permitted, and we negotiate a pole attachment rate. And we've got those with every one of them, including Charter Spectrum, who was going to come into East Texas and doing great, wonderful things. Well, a bunch of those telecoms got together and they decided we don't like those negotiated rates that we sit down and mutually worked out amongst each other, a contract, if you will. We want to go to an FCC rate, just an arbitrary rate, and we think everybody will pay the same thing. Well, guess what? That FCC rate was going to have you subsidizing a for-profit company. We're not about that. Our infrastructure is about serving you. And if they want to come get on our poles, we didn't invite them on our poles. They wanted to come get on them. And they negotiated a rate. And then they didn't want to pay it. And want to drag us into the state house down there and tell us how bad we are and how unfair we are. It's our poles you want to get on. You understand me? So we spent a lot of time fighting that. We had some very good legislators in East Texas that helped us out. And thankfully, right at the very end, before that was about to go to the whole house for consideration, it got pulled down. The irony of that whole deal was, while they were down there fighting us in the State House, guess what they did? They quit putting stuff on our poles and just started digging everywhere, right? Anybody in here seen any of that orange pipe laying around? Guess where it all landed? In the right pattern for brush tops. So if you want a crappie fish, there's plenty of new brush tops out there made out of Charter Spectrum orange pipe. They quit. All the while digging, and never asked one of you, could they? Well, good for you. But good for you, because they were trespassing. And that was the other thing that we tried to tell our state legislators. They don't have the right. That easement you conveyed to us is for one purpose, electrical service. And I can't convey that to anybody. You told me I could be on your property for electrical service. And they were trying to convince our legislatures that we could just convey that. Okay? All right, I'm gonna get off of that because I'm getting a little heated. So let's move on. Let's talk about some of the things that transpired since last year, and we'll talk about some financials, and then we'll get into the good part about, hey, what's happening next. One of the things we always talk about is weather, and weather drives everything we do. Days like today, I love them. They're great, they're wonderful. We don't have any outages. It's great. It's not hot or cold, so therefore it's not what we would call a good revenue day. But the first 4 months of this year were rough. Rougher than the peanut patty on the goober side. It was rough from a weather standpoint. January 10th, it's hard for us to imagine as we sit here and think about it today, under this pavilion, it's nice and warm. January 10th, Winter Storm Cora came to visit. We had dodged numerous, we're sitting here watching all the time, watching the radar, watching the temperature, hoping it'll stay in the upper 30s or drop down to 28 degrees. We either want rain or snow. We don't want that stuff in between, right? And we dodged several of those until January the 10th, and Winter Storm Cora came to see us. And after she got here, we had 13,000 meters of our 40,000 out of lights. And it took us 3 days and a lot of help from sister co-ops to get that back up and running. Thankfully, for us, it only impacted us, so all our sister co-ops around us were able to come and help us, and we were able to get that back up and running pretty quickly. Well, we got a reprieve. For the month of February, we didn't have anything appreciable. And then March 4th rolls around, and we get thunderstorms and tornadoes across the entire service territory, all 6 counties. And we end up with some 18,000 folks out of lights, and it took us 5 days. Because the same system that came through here hit all of our sister co-ops. Couldn't ask for Wood County or Trinity Valley or Upshur or Rusk or any of those folks. They had lights out just like we did. So we had to solicit help from outside of our service territory. In fact, I looked to our statewide Texas Electric Cooperative, and they summoned folks. We had folks come from Central Texas, Fort Worth, and others, and they came and helped us. And then, April the 4th, anybody in here from the Lone Star Jenkins area? God bless you. That was rough. That was rough. I guess I've seen some tornado damage firsthand, but that was intense, and it's hard for me to imagine when you see these category 4 and 5 tornadoes that get on the ground and just stay on the ground. Well, that thing came through Jenkins, skipped across the lake, landed in Lone Star, and took out the Baptist encampment and all that. It was a mess, and kudos to the mayor and everybody else over there. They got a lot of resources in there, but that was another week's worth of work that we spent. Rough on the folks that it impacted. There's still a lot of stuff over there. Each one of those storms, whether it be a 3-day, 5-day, takes about a week out of our business or more, because we got to go back and do some maintenance stuff after the fact. All told, those 3 storms cost us $2.2 million. That was immediate cash flow. Those sister co-ops come and help. But guess what? They expect us to pay those labor costs and transportation costs. And it got us about 3 weeks behind on everything we did. So thankfully, since that time, we haven't seen appreciable weather. But it sure put us in a hole right from the jump. Let's talk about financials for just a minute. Each of you should have gotten a bulletin. I will briefly go down these financials. They're relatively straightforward. President DeLaughter highlighted the fact that we did have 2 years of negative operating margins. But as you see there, we did it a little different this year. I think it's good to have comparisons. I like to see a 2-year comparison, and I like to see what's budgeted. That's the way the financials that I present to your board every month look. Overall sales for the 2 years, this is not in here, but both years were pretty close, 660 million, 664 million megawatt hours, kilowatt hours, I'm sorry. Got a duck on the loose. Anyway, you see there in 2024, which is the year we're talking about, $74 million worth of electric revenue, added with the winter storm Uri. Why was it so much less in 24 than it was in 23? If you remember last year, I told you we finished off winter storm Uri in about April. So that was all that we had left to recover from that $21 million power bill that we got back in 2000. Got that off the books, so we got that knocked out. Anyway, total operating revenue was $77.8 million on a budget of 79. So we were a little under budget. Again, this is going to be contingent on sales. And we try to take average sales. We don't take extreme years and try to calculate our budgets on that. Purchase power cost was $46 million, about $1.5 million less than we had budgeted, which was good. Total purchase power cost expense 48.4 on 49. Our gross margin was good. It was about 300,000 less than we budgeted. All in all, pretty good, except for down there in the operations and maintenance areas. About 400,000 over and about $300,000 over on storms, or 300,000 on maintenance, and that's directly correlated to those storms, part of that $2.2 million that I talked about. Anyway, you can wade down through there. Accounts expense, consumer accounts was good, A&G was good, operations and maintenance expense good, but the total operating margin of 579 is what we had to address, we agonized over, and now have in place a rate that was only 4.9% over 2 years. Okay, Mark, how come you got a net capital, patronage capital margin of $1.2 million? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because we have a few things that below the line that we talk about. We did have some interest. We have capital credit accounts that have some money in there, and we did derive some interest in there. We sell some old junky equipment, and we get about $100,000 out of that. About $1.4 million of that falls down there is allocations. We're part of a wholesale power provider, which is a cooperative. Texas Electric Cooperative, where we buy all our materials, is a cooperative. We get allocations from them, and we get allocations from our insurance provider. So just like you, we tell you each year what we're going to allocate, and then we tell you what you're going to retire. So the allocations for capital credits are the biggest portion of why we had a total positive margin. Happy to report that through August, we're about $900,000 on our operating margin. That's the best operating margin we've had in recent years. It did come out of August when we saw the best sales we've seen since January. That will diminish over the fall because these cooler months where we're not selling a whole lot, that will diminish. Anyway, if you got any more questions about financials, we'll be glad to talk to you about those after the meeting. All right, so now, what else is going on? A lot. A lot. We'll quantify that. Well, I'm going to try to quantify that. I've never seen in the 20 years I've been at the cooperative as much going on in our world, and when I say our world, not just the cooperative, but the electric utility world, as what's going on right now. We got a few things that are specific just to us here in East Texas. Gotta love a Harley. One of the things we got going on is there's something called the zonal planning criteria, and this is looking at bulk transmission. Bowie-Cass owns about 200 miles of transmission line, and that is all our transmission line. The only thing it does is serve our loads, and our loads only. When you talk about SWEPCO and other big entities, they're the bulk transmission system. And there's some projects that are going on in our part of the world that will allow our transmission systems, once they are upgraded, to become a part of that bulk transmission system. Well, why do you want to do that, Mark? Well, number one, it will increase reliability exponentially. It will give us different ties. A lot of our stuff is strung out on what we call a radial. sources here and it goes out there, but it doesn't tie into anything else. Some of these projects will allow us to have redundancy in our system, but more importantly, those projects, and there's right now slated about $60 million worth of projects over the next 10 years on our system. 60 million over the next 10 years. Once it falls into the bulk transmission system, it is eligible for transmission revenue. That means we're not going to have to pay for it all. It's going to go in the bulk transmission system, and that cost will be shared, and we get a guaranteed rate of return that over time will allow that transmission work to be paid for and not off your back, okay? So I'm pretty excited about that. Number one, it's reliability projects that need to happen. Number two, it's going to go into the bulk system and be paid for. The other thing that I'm excited about, the state right now is sitting on a big surplus of money. When they have a surplus of money, they look at things that they ordinarily wouldn't put money towards. And the Texas Energy Fund was created. They allocated $1 billion to the ERCOT market, which is most of Texas, not East Texas. We're in the SPP, and they had $1 billion for non-ERCOT projects. And we, through our wholesale power provider, put in a substantial amount of projects into that Texas Energy Fund. And tentatively, don't get too excited because I had no check in the mail, right? They've awarded us $30 million of grant money to allow us to go out there and replace transmission poles and things like that. I mean, one of the issues that that got brought up in the legislation this year was poles replacements. So $30 million in transmission poles. We're not going to put wood back out there so the woodpecker will have something to play with. We'll put ductile steel poles out there. So I'm very excited. Again, I haven't seen the check, but we're going to be looking for that. So those are two things that are going on that are really exciting, that are just on our system. Now the next thing I'm going to talk about is large loads. That's the new buzzword, large loads. Anybody see anything about large loads? Large loads this, large loads that. What's a large load? Is it like two trailer loads of pulp wood, or what's a large load? But I'm going to try to explain that. What is a large load? But I'm going to start by asking you a question. How many of you here have one of these? Hold it up. Be proud. Smartphone, right? Ooh, I love a smartphone. How many of you even use it like a phone? A little bit. What do you mostly use it for? Well, searching the web. That's a good answer. Might look at a little Facebook. Might look at a little TikTok. I don't look at TikTok. I banned it off my phone. It's bad for you. Anybody use Facebook? Don't lie to me. Raise your hand. All right, all you ladies, raise your hand. Now, all you men that look at you, if it's your wife's Facebook, raise your hand, because I know you do. You don't want to tell it. That's real cool, isn't it? Who could have ever imagined that we could hold something in our hand that would tell us all the things that we want to know instantaneously? Siri, what's the lake level? What's the weather going to be? All the things that we have access to, and that is neat and gee whiz. And if you can think of the right question to ask on a Google search, you can pretty much get the answer. Or get on YouTube, you can figure out how to fix just about anything, right? The big thing that's happening today, all of that's just exploding, and we love it, and it's great, and I want it to happen, and that's why we need high-speed internet so I can watch all that stuff and do all that stuff. Don't be trying to touch me, Bill. But most of these searches now are going from Google searches to AI searches. So, what do you know about AI? What do you think about AI? I hate it. It scares me to death. Some people love it. It allows you to do so much stuff. And when I put a Google search in now, I guess I'm happy about it because AI gives me a whole lot more stuff than I was getting before. An AI search takes 10 times more energy than does a regular Google search. Well, so far, so what, Mark? Yeah, quantify that. All right, y'all going to stick with me for a minute. Going to do a little math, do a little thinking. It's really simple. Imagine, if you will, what is that? A little different than the light bulb we used to have, right? It kind of looks like that old light bulb. I was growing up, this was 60 or 75 or 100, right? Incandescent. What is that? LED. LED, best thing since sliced bread. That's about 8 watts. For the illustration purposes today, let's imagine this is a watt. That's just a measurement of power. I don't know how many of y'all are here. Let's say there's 500, but let's pretend there's 1,000. Every one of y'all's got one of these in your hand. We got 1,000 watts. That's a kilowatt. If you multiply that 1,000 times 1,000, you get a megawatt. All right, stick it with me. Now, I was going to use another illustration before I got to some of these other watts. How many of y'all remember in 1985 that show called Back to the Future? Anybody watch that? Michael J. Fox, Doc Brown had a DeLorean. Do you remember how much power it took to get the DeLorean to go back in time? You remember? In the first one, he had a nuclear reactor. In the second one, they had to use light. And he looked at the deal and he said, "What did I say?" And he goes, 1.21 gigawatts. Oh my God, 1.21 gigawatts. Well, I'm going to get to those gigawatts here in just a minute. Y'all hang with me. There is no such thing as a gigawatt. Well, I guess I'm going to wing it now for sure. But there is such thing, appreciate you, sir, as gigawatts. So we left off on megawatts. Why are megawatts important? Bowie-Cass system, right here on any given day, all 40,000 meters, we're going to peak out at about 150,000 megawatts. In the wintertime, when it's really cold, like going back to Uri, the system goes to 230 megawatts. Wow, that's a lot, Mark. I told you, we was going to talk about a lot. We, along with the co-ops in East Texas, 10 co-ops, our system peak is about 1,875 megawatts. Now we done jumped into gigawatts. 1.8 gigawatts. If you take the region of Texas of ERCOT, they're currently at 86 gigawatts. And I'm going to go one more 1,000, and we're going to go to terawatts. And I couldn't get a clear definition on how much, but the world uses somewhere between 1 and 3 terawatts on any given day. So 1,000, 100, a million, 100 million. What we're talking about is a trillion. It's kind of like the national debt, right? You can't even keep up with the numbers. There's so many zeros out there. Why am I telling you that? When we start talking about large loads, the size and scale of the request for data centers, which is all being driven by us and our smartphones, is going to consume more energy than you can fathom. It will far surpass anything that happened in the Industrial Revolution. Well, give me an example. Well, here's the example. We've had an inquiry about a 300 megawatt load. All of us combined today, all 40,000 meters, what did I say? 150. Twice the size of what we currently have. E-Tech would go from 1.8 gigawatts to 3.4. ERCOT, 86 gigawatts to 148 gigawatts. Well, over what time frame, Mark? In the next 5 years. Folks, we're already scrounging for a generation. Can you imagine what happens when these large, and they're going to happen. You know why? Because I want to be able to do a Google search or an AI search. And I want to be able to look at all the things that I look at. It is going to consume incredible amounts of energy.
At what cost?
At what cost? Thank you, sir. Well, we got to build a lot of generation. A lot of generation. I'll give you an example. I know of one project that's going on right now in our footprint. It's one combined cycle, or it's not a combined cycle, one single cycle turbine. Very common. It's about 250 megawatt gas turbine. It will cost about $400 million for that one turbine expansion at an already existing power plant. We'll start doing those numbers. 250 megawatts costs $400 million, and you need 300 megawatts to serve that one load, and then you got into those gigawatts and those other things. The amount of generation and transmission that's going to be built in this country in the next few years will be astronomical. And it will be a strain on resources unlike anything that we've seen. If you want a GE turbine or a Siemens turbine, good luck. You're 5 years out. That's just getting in the queue. Then you got to build a transmission. Well, what are we going to fuel it with, Mark? That's another good question. Thank you for asking. What are we going to fuel it with? Nuclear power. We'll get to that in a minute. Thank you for that. Right now, everybody's clamoring towards natural gas. Right now in this country, we're producing about 105 billion cubic feet of natural gas a day. We're exporting about 15 billion. We're going to export more, we're going to consume more. Are they going to punch enough holes? Are they going to do it? I don't know. I don't know. And we've talked about time and time again, all of our wholesale power is based on what happens in the natural gas market. President DeLaughter said numerous times, it's a commodity. We saw what it did 3 years ago. Right now it's at 350. It's been as high as 9 in recent years. What happens when it gets to 9? It lands on your bill. We hadn't done anything other than the price of that commodity has gone up. Is nuclear going to be a part of that? We hope. I got an article this morning that's talking about small modular reactors, SMRs. That's what all the talk is about. The earliest one of those, according to what I read this morning, and this is coming from the Edison Electric, whatever, they are the official word on what's going on in our business. 2031, 2033, years beyond when this growth is going to be here. And they still haven't proven that technology out. I don't get it. We got nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers all over the world. How many of you all are in the Navy? We got some folks out here who've been in the Navy. They power that stuff all day long, every day. Why we can't take one of those things and plant it on land and use it for electric energy? I have no idea. You would think that would be reasonable, right? We don't know. But I can tell you there's going to be a lot of changes. Will we get that 300 megawatt load? I don't know. It's going to land somewhere. I do know that the energy consumption is going to go up, and we're already trying to plan for just natural growth. But when you throw this large load equation in on there, it's really uncharted territory. So you're going to see and hear a lot of things about what's going on. That's what I know about what's going on in the electric world today. I hope you found that a little bit educational. It's a little too long, I get it. I'm sorry. My job is to try to inform you about things that we know are going on. Some of those. Okay. Is a generator going to become extinct?
Yes.
I don't know what technology would make that become extinct, because renewables are not going to replace. There's still going to be renewables. I know there's a lot of hullabaloo in the news today about curtailing some of those projects, and I'm not mad about it, because we were chasing everything towards wind and solar and batteries. Wind, solar, and batteries have a place, but it's not going to, that 300 megawatt load, if we put it online today, is going to want 99.9% reliability, not 14%, which is what is tagged on renewable energy. 14%. You can't make it come on. You hope it does. You hope the wind blows, and you hope the sun shines. Well, what about them batteries, Mark? Okay, that buys you 4 hours. Maybe 8. All the while, you're piling on cost. All those renewables have to be backed up by something that you can flip a switch on. So we've just increased cost. Even though the fuel of wind and solar is free, right? Free. You gotta have something to back it up. So I don't know. Generators become extinct. I don't know what would replace it. I guess if you could have enough, if money was unlimited and you could have enough solar and wind and batteries to stockpile the type of energy we're talking about, I don't even know what that would look like. One of the things I read when we was talking about that terawatt, a terawatt of energy would take 1,000 large-scale nuclear power plants to generate that kind of energy. We're not building nuclear. Nuclear's going away, coal's going away, albeit slower. A lot of those projects that were slated to be knocked in the head are extending the life on those. So I don't really know. That's the big quandary. What is going to replace it? And SMRs, I hope so. I hope that's what it is. Anyway, that's all I got. I went longer than I anticipated, but I'll try again next year to make a short speech. All right? Thank y'all. Appreciate you being here.